Hello, Contrarians listeners, watchers, followers everywhere in the world. Here we are with the latest Contrarians warm up. This one is for our episode on Dolemite Is My Name, the most recent Eddie Murphy comeback. Pre COVID, Eddie Murphy made a splash with a Netflix production, breaking all the rules again. The world, critics everywhere went crazy for it. So, this is super fresh. On the main episode, we're going to be talking about it as if it was rotten. It's a lot to criticize here. But in this warm up, we're just going to give you some Rotten Tomatoes quotes, some trivia, and then, of course, the Josh Gad Minute.
Tough one.
There's a few white people in this movie. We can place them there carefully. But let's get started, because there's a lot. I actually pulled 5 quotes, Alex, because there's a gazillion Rotten Tomatoes quotes for this movie. So we're going to start with Michael Compton from Bowling Green Daily News, who says, "For those who may not understand what all the fuss over Murphy was about, Dolemite shows it in a big way, making Murphy a star again in a movie that is a tender ode to anyone who ever wanted to be a star." Talked about this a little bit on the main episode, about how some people may not know why Eddie Murphy is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's been long enough,
I guess. Yeah. I mean, we kind of reference it in the episode. A lot of people, just a generation, pretty much just know him as Donkey from Shrek.
Yeah. Like Donkey? Donkey's nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah. Talking about Sherman Klump, my man.
All right. Oscar Goff from Boston Hassle says, "If you've ever made a movie on a shoestring budget, you'll instantly recognize the triumphs and hardships endured by the characters." Number 1, what hardships? But more importantly, number 2, I get it. You've been on a handful of movie sets too, like independent filmmaking, and we've told our stories mostly on Patreon, but every now and then they filter through the main feed. And I think that this movie, maybe even more so than other movies that we referenced in the episode, like Ed Wood or The Disaster Artist, I think that this movie definitely made me miss that feeling of being in an independent movie set, and just kind of like, the camaraderie and that feeling of like, all right, we're figuring it out every day.
They do. This does a much better job. And, I think one of the things we grapple with in the episode of figuring out is how much Rudy Ray Moore's ego was in the equation. But from the perspective of this movie and the story it tells, it's nowhere near as, it's exactly what you said. Disaster Artist, I'm just like, fuck, man, I don't want to be there. That just seems like hell being there doing that. Ed Wood kind of in a similar fashion, but this, it was like, man, it looks like a lot of fucking fun. And
everybody gets along with each other. Everybody cares. Yeah. Even
until the
Wesley
white
Snipes.
Film students show up.
Who's going to Starbucks to pick up our coffee order?
For real, where are my SAG benefits?
Next, Louisa Moore from Screen Zealots says, "Rudy Ray Moore was a true pioneer of the blaxploitation genre. He knew what people wanted and gave it to them, much like this easy-to-swallow Netflix original film." Netflix, Alex, yeah. you have a complicated relationship with Netflix originals, to say the least.
Well, this one at least, what Dolemite did give us was titties, funny, and kung fu. So
yes.
Yes, complicated, I guess is the way to put it. Just kind of where we're at. You think more people saw this and would have if it got a wide theatrical release?
I want to say yes.
The problem is what Netflix gives. I mean, you can walk out of a movie. You and I have both done it before, but the ability to, and that's what, for a lot of people is so much mentally easier to grasp around. Hey, I'm going to watch this movie, as I can just turn it off and change it to The Office if I want to. So
they will never, unless they're forced. I don't think they'll ever tell you how many of those views make it all the way to the end versus.
That would be interesting. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but
they're not a public company, are they? You can't buy stock in Netflix, can you?
I don't think so. I don't know. That's a question for a friend, listener, and patron, Dan Brennick.
Dan, yeah, let us know, because you could get on an investor's call and be like, all right, motherfucker, how many people actually watch?
I want to know.
Yeah.
Before we greenlight this new comedy with Jonah Hill, right? Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy. Give me the real numbers on Dolemite.
Tell me how many people actually watch Dahmer all the way to the end. I need to know right now.
Who is this Alex Mattis person that watched it 3 times in a row?
We need to monitor this IP address. There's some dangerous activity going on here. No, we didn't come around to this in the episode. So it was in theaters. So technically, it still would have been eligible for like Oscars and shit.
It just had like a limited run, right?
But I think it like their rule is like if it plays in a movie theater for X amount of days or something, it's eligible.
Yeah,
because there's been through years tons of foreign films that got like a 9-day release in Duluth, Georgia, or Tempe, Arizona. So who knows?
Four-walling it.
You People was the name of that movie that we were both blanking on.
Okay, well, I want the numbers on You People. I want the numbers on Dolemite, and I want to see if that correlates with Eddie Murphy's career moving forward.
Having never seen You People, I hope My Name Is Dolemite has more views than it does.
Well, next, John Bifus from Commercial Appeal, Memphis, Tennessee, says Craig Brewer's Netflix-hosted return to feature filmmaking is a spiritual sequel of sorts to Hustle and Flow, and a hilarious homage to the Memphis director's own family and friends filmmaking roots. Alex, I don't know anything about Craig Brewer. I've heard of Black Snake Moan. Of course, I'm extremely familiar with Hustle and Flow as far as a phenomenon, right? Like they won the Oscar before Scorsese did. That was the meme back in the day. But I've never seen any of Craig Brewer's movies, so I don't know how this fits in his filmography. Are you the same, or have you seen any of his movies? Are you familiar with his work at all?
I just remember DJ Qualls is in Hustle and Flow.
Yep.
And 3-6 Mafia won the Academy Award. I've never seen Black Snake Moan. He did we talked about in the preview or like the end of the previous episode, he did the Footloose remake, which you said you had seen before.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, that is not at all like what I think of when I think of Black Snake Moan and Hustle and Flow. Definitely not like Dolemite Is My Name. I think he did that one for I don't know, for the mortgage payment.
Yeah, his filmography is fairly, as far from a directing standpoint, is limited to strong word. It's just very concise. The Poor and Hungry, Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, Footloose, Indie Origins, Dolemite Is My Name, and Coming to America 2. There was a Tarzan movie in 2016 that he wrote.
The one with what's his name? Skarsgård, Alexander Skarsgård.
What the? Alexander Skarsgård, Samuel L. Jackson, Margaret Robbie. Christoph Waltz. What the hell, man? What are they doing?
He fights a gorilla in that movie, I think. Like for supremacy.
For dominance.
Yes.
And then he was one of the producers on Katy Perry, Part of Me.
That's right. Yeah, we did call that out on the episode. One of your most prized possessions.
I think I might still have somewhere in one of my boxes of shit the 3D glasses that came with that, because they were like special Katy Perry 3D glasses. No, so Craig Brewer is not someone whose filmography, he's not Rob Zombie. I can't, just quote it up and down, page and verse. But what I can say is this particular movie, there was clearly a vision for it that's executed. And I'm curious how much of that was Craig Brewer and how much it was Eddie Murphy. I mean, I think what a lot of people would tell you, your De Niro's and Scorsese's, your pairs, your zombies and Moon zombies would tell you that
it's a collaboration.
It's a collaboration. Yeah, you both have a vision and it comes together. And this is a movie that certainly has a vision.
Yeah, I think that if I were to go partake of the Craig Brewer filmography again, it'll probably be Coming to America 2. It's the easiest to just pick and be like, I might like this. Black Snake Moon, isn't it like Samuel Jackson has Christina Ricci chained to a bed in that movie? That sounds rough.
Yeah, that movie, I remember the advertising, like the marketing campaign for that was all built around like it was so sexualized, and I've never seen the movie, but my understanding is that like it's not an overtly sexual movie, but it was all the TV spots where Christina Ricci in her white panties, with a chain around her, and then Samuel just like sweating and looking all jacked and fucking yoked up. I've heard it's one of those movies I've always heard very conflicting things about. People kind of take a side with it. There you go, 60% or 66% on Rotten Tomatoes. So critics kind of did a similar thing, but I
Okay,
should
you
sit
might
down
have
and watch
changed my
it.
mind now. After that, maybe I will go to Black Snake Moan just to figure it out, and then I'll go to Coming to America.
Oh wow, this means nothing to most people listening to this, but it premiered at the Button-umathon.
What spot though? Was that the midnight movie? Was that like the? I don't even know. Like, does it start at midnight? Does it end at? Well, I guess it would start and end at midnight. But Namathon, if you're not an Austin person, do they even do it anymore? I don't know, but it's like 24 hours, right? Nonstop. You just sit there.
Yeah,
Your
no, they
butt gets
don't.
numb.
It's more of like an Austin thing. Obviously, it goes kind of beyond that in some aspects, but the reason I bring that up is because it premiered at an Austin Film Festival, which is kind of strange, and that was 3 months before its wide release.
All right, we're gonna close. Final quote. Matt Oakes from Silver Screen Riot says, "Where the hell has this Eddie Murphy been for the past 2 decades?"
Making money. Making money.
20 years. He's saying that for the last 20 years, Eddie Murphy was MIA. This Eddie Murphy. Where does that put us?
Oh, Dreamgirls that came out, and so this would 20 years before this would have taken us back to 1999, and
I wasn't even in the United States at that point.
Still a damn foreigner, Julio.
Yep.
Bowfinger was 99. You know, that has its followers. Shrek, which is obviously a voice acting role, but still the first Shrek, the first and second Shrek are a hoot and a holler. I never saw Showtime with him and Bobby De Niro.
Not good.
So for the most part, this guy's right, but he got nominated for a fucking Oscar for Dreamgirls. So I think this Eddie Murphy was around for a little while.
Yeah.
And yes, definitively between this and Dreamgirls was a period of just because you had Meet Dave. Some of these movies we talk about in the actual episode, this kind of stretch of movies, non-Shrek movies that Eddie Murphy made where he just got paid bank and these movies did not do jack shit. Meet Dave, imagine that, 1,000 words. And then Dolemite Is My Name eventually came to fruition. So this guy was here, and we talk about in detail in the episode. It's not like Eddie ever forgot what he was doing. It's just Mike Myers, besides being just a huge asshole, is an example of that. Of like, he's really funny, and he made some good movies, and then I'll just do The Love Guru and make $20 million instead, not really give a shit about what I'm doing.
Then one day he answered the phone and it was Tarantino on the other side. And he's like, all right, I have one scene for you. You nail it, then you can become part of the cast.
You know, Quentin too was like, hey man, I'm a big fan of So I Married an Axe Murderer, right? So this is what I'm thinking, okay.
All right. Well, those were the quotes, Alex. Before we go into whatever trivia you have for Dolemite Is My Name, let's do the thing with Josh Gad. It's the Josh Gad Minute, where we put Josh Gad instead of one of the cast members of the movie. There's a handful of white actors that he could replace here.
Yeah.
Who's the most high profile? Is it Saul Goodman?
I would think so. And you can't really replace him because that works for that. Because you need his kind of delivery. Because, like, there's no arena where I don't think that Eddie Murphy could not just whip the shit out of Josh Gad. I think in maybe some, like, logistical or, with some red tape, maybe Bob Odenkirk could get an upper hand on Eddie Murphy. So that's kind of why I find some of that shit believable. So you really have to dip into here. Gad could be one of the cops in the movie, like in Dolemite.
Okay.
The scene specifically, where they plant the shit in his trunk and he like kung fu fights him and throws him. Maybe something like that. Or, I mean, if you just kind of want to do the fun, he was on set for 4 hours thing, he can be like a bartender or something at one of the places they go. But my vote would be one of the cops in the movie that has more than one scene, but not really any lines of consequence. So
people are like, when is Josh Gad going to have his scene? And it never.
Well, not that. Well, kind of, but it's more of like Matt Damon Interstellar. You don't go out of your way to promote that Josh Gad's in the movie. So like people, and this again, this is all contingent on this is a theater experience. So you can't rewind. So you're there. Is that Josh Gad? And you kind of look and or I would turn to you and be like, and then the second scene you're like, that's Josh Gad, and then you expect him to like the third time he comes around to say something, but he just gets thrown aside or something. That's what I would do with this.
I would give him a little bit more to do. What if he is that first white guy that listens to Dolemite and brings him to the other white executives? Like his first record deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what everybody's listening to, and he gets
because even though Gad's getting up there in age, he still has that like just pure innocence about him and kind of like
youthfulness.
Yeah, exactly. The youthful exuberance. He could be like, this is what's coming to town. This is what the kids want to see now.
All right. There it is. We figured it out. You guys are all welcome. Now you can, next time you watch Dolemite Is My Name, just picture Josh Gad there, and it becomes a better movie.
Hey, man, here in 6 months or so, you're going to be able to just remake movies any way you want them with AI. So,
okay. Well, let's not think that far ahead. Let's just stay in the realm of Dolemite Is My Name. Alex, what trivia do you have?
Everything just burning and crumbling around Julio, and he's like, keep on a brave face, guys. It's going to be all right. All right, so Dolemite Is My Name, a Netflix original, which was released on Netflix on October 4th of 2019. It premiered the previous month at the Toronto International Film Festival, September 7th of 2019. Did have a limited theatrical release, wasn't really able to find much of the way of box office numbers, though. And of course, just like the WWE Network, Netflix doesn't got to tell you shit. Actually, WWE Network does because they're a publicly traded company, but still, what are you going to say? You can fudge those numbers all you want. A towering 97% on Rotten Tomatoes based on over 200 reviews. There's a new movie coming out this week that I'm excited about and we'll be talking about in the future. The headline I read today was opens on Rotten Tomatoes at 50%, and then I saw it was from 8 reviews. And I was like, that's a room of your friends, and every other one says, yes, I would watch that movie. This is a bit of a different situation. This is a well-attended independent wrestling show, and 97% of them are like, Dolemite Is My Name. That's the way to go right there, man. So most vintage Rudy Ray Moore scenes are recreated in their entirety with modern actors. However, the house escape scene from the Human Tornado, only the close-up shots of Moore were replaced. So Eddie Murphy appears to interact with the original supporting cast. I didn't really take stock of that, but that's interesting. How do you feel about that? When Hayden Christensen, Return of the Jedi shit.
I understand it. I think I would be bummed if I was the guy that originally played. For like a decade, 2 decades, you can point at the end of Return of the Jedi and go like, "Hey, there I am."
Yeah.
And then, but it's kind of like if George Lucas is doing it. I've had this argument with people from the moment that he started releasing those. He started retouching the original trilogy and whatever, and people were mad. I was like, why do you do that? And I'm like, look, you may not like it, but it's his movie. He can do whatever the fuck he wants with his movie. And I think that that's where the line should be drawn. If it's your movie, you can retool it, redo whatever, as long as there's consent from all the parties involved. Once you get into the whole, I don't know, I'm wrestling with, is it Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One?
Yeah.
And, that kind of stuff.
Peter
Cushing, yeah. And then, of course, Carrie Fisher. And then, everything else that's been going on. That's harder. But in this case, I mean, it's...
For you that have seen The Flash, I don't intend to, but there's a lot of stuff that's relevant to this conversation right now.
Yeah. In this case, I mean, I think that it makes sense. The story is, your favorite term, Alex, it's a love letter to Rudy Ray Moore. And it would be kind of it would be distracting if you were not to replace Eddie Murphy, him with Eddie Murphy in those scenes. I guess they could just not have those scenes in there at all. But I think it's part of the fun of it. I've decided I'm okay with it. But I think, this is the thing. You all take note. You have to take these things case by case scenario. Don't fall into the trap of saying, yes, this is good, or no, this is bad, and just issue this blanket statement, because then you have to give every situation, I think, proper analysis. Give it the 2 minutes on the where we call, where you like figure it out and then you decide how you feel about it.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's obviously Rudy Ray Moore shown in the archival footage in the credits, but yeah, I think if you just kind of intersperse that this movie's meant to educate a wider audience about this dude. So if they cut to someone at this point the audience isn't familiar with, and just like, here's the actual Rudy Ray Moore, it could be confusing. But yeah, it's always a fine line to walk, and it's weird, and that goes beyond just this movie of deep fakes and CG and all the shit we can do today. Eddie Murphy's first R-rated film since Life from 1999, which I have not seen. Is that the one with Martin Lawrence, I believe?
Yep. They go to prison for life.
Oh, that makes sense. The tagline of it was "Share it with someone you love." That's tremendous. Eddie Murphy was a huge fan of Wesley Snipes, and this movie was the first time the two of them worked together. Talk about that a bit more in the episode. Rudy Ray Moore claims to have worked with Red Fox, whose comedy routines are featured in this film. Eddie Murphy worked with Red Fox 3 decades earlier on Harlem Nights, his directorial debut. Very famous movie in its own right.
I didn't know that. Wait, whose directorial debut? Eddie Murphy's? Or
yep. Eddie wrote and directed that movie.
I didn't know that.
You ever seen it?
Nope.
It's funny. You should definitely check it out sometime. It's a good one. This was Craig Brewer. Going back to him, it was the first film he directed that he did not write, as well as his first produced by Netflix. Get used to it, buddy.
Following the footsteps of greats such as Martin Scorsese.
Rob Zombie. Director Craig Brewer, back to Craig, specifically made homage to the heroes nodding to each other in Return of the Jedi for the moment between the characters just before filming the sex scene.
What?
I mean,
who's nodding to who in Return of the Jedi?
Isn't that the end? They all just like around the campfire on.
Is that what happens?
I think that's what he's referencing, but I mean that's from that. There are thousands of movies where like the fucking.
There's the Star Trek meme, like the Star Trek meme. I know, or the three of them are just like nodding. Yeah.
Oh god, that would have been great. As if right before filming, is it Craig Robinson that's manning the gimmicks?
Yeah, I think so.
Just Eddie slowly puts. If you didn't think we could bring white nerd shit to the discussion about Dolemite, you got another thing coming. Although the film is about the making of Dolemite from 1975, Rudy Ray Moore's first film, numerous Easter eggs reference Moore's later films. The police car chase, Dolemite fleeing the house, the exploding car, and the sex scene are actually from The Human Tornado, Moore repeatedly saying, "Put your weight on it." And the main character in the play vowing to take revenge against a drug dealer are references to Disco Godfather. For those of you on our Patreon, we're going to be talking about the actual Dolemite from 1975 in an upcoming installment or episode, a Patreon exclusive, and kind of a segue into talking about some of the other work he did and our familiarity with it and or lack thereof.
Yep.
The last one I read that I was a bit perplexed by and was hoping you could shed some light on it. Shed a light on love, as Ryan Reynolds would say in Adventureland. Keegan-Michael Key was a huge fan of Rudy Ray Moore before getting cast in the film. While working on The Predator, other cast members would come to his trailer to watch Moore's films. Keegan-Michael Key was in a Predator movie?
Yes, quite possibly the worst Predator movie in the franchise. The one written and directed by Shane Black. Oof. Also starring Psylocke, Olivia Munn.
Yes, I had to look into this a little bit more. Sterling K. Brown, who's a tremendous actor.
Yes.
Thomas Jane.
Yes.
Jake Busey.
I don't remember him, but probably. Maybe he's the Predator.
And Jacob Tremblay, who has a face like someone I feel like I should remember from something.
You haven't seen Room, which is his big movie. Not
The
Room, but Room.
Yes, for which Brie Larson won her Academy Award.
Yes, yeah.
And the poster is the Jason Goes to Hell poster. So, what the fuck?
It's a really bad
The-
movie, and I know it has its fans, but it made me angry. And I like Shane Black's work. I mean, it's hidden, it's documented throughout our show that sometimes it works really well for me, sometimes it doesn't. But that one actually, I don't know, I just felt a little betrayed, which sounds really entitled of me, especially because I don't really care about the Predator franchise that
I
much.
was about to say, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
It was more like, oh, it's a Predator movie written and directed by Shane Black, so you go in with certain level of expectations, and
Yeah,
it was just a mess. And
I
yes,
it
Keegan Michael Key is there.
it's a movie that came out after 2014, so I was just kind of like, But there was a UFC pay-per-view I went to in Dallas right before that came out in September of 2018. And when they have sponsors for a show, especially if it's a movie, like in between every fucking fight, my buddy Biss was sitting maybe 8-10 rows behind me. And it just got to a point during the show, they would show it every fucking interlude. And I would turn around to him, and one of us would yell to the other one, "It's the Predator!" And so I kind of never want to see that movie because I have that kind of just fun memory about it. Like that was I can do math. 5 years ago. I'll see him sometimes at shows in different cities, and like we'll see each other, and if we're far enough away, we'll go, "It's the Predator!" So I have that memory, so I don't want that tainted. So that's probably why I will never watch it. But tying it back to Dolemite Is My Name, mind done blown when I saw that Keegan Michael Key was in it. What a fascinating like body of work that guy has.
And if I remember correctly, he's just Keegan Michael Key. He's just there
Okay.
doing bits. The main guy in that movie, by the way, is the youngest brother in the John Cena movie we watched for our Rock Cena miniseries.
The Reunion?
The Reunion. The youngest brother. Okay.
Is the Predator better than the Reunion?
Begrudgingly, I have to say yes.
He had to think about it, though. That's rough, dude, if you had to think about it. My God.
The Reunion didn't make me angry. The Predator made me angry.
Yeah. All right. Well, this kind of went everywhere. Bet you didn't think we'd talk about the Reunion or fucking Star Wars when talking about Dolemite Is My Name. But as would be expected, as any self-respecting film podcast would do when discussing Eddie Murphy, the discussion goes some places. And it was a fun episode and eye-opening in many ways. And not a difficult one to traverse necessarily, but just admitting from the position of like being a white guy and shit, just representation matters. We use that phrase a lot throughout that episode. It was said to be a passion project for Eddie Murphy, and as if you couldn't tell by this discussion, you'll definitely tell it. But from the episode and watching the movie, that shines through hard. So, watch the movie, and then follow up with the Contrarians.
Yep, it's on Netflix. In case you missed that part, so all you have to do is just press play. It's right there at your disposal, and then it will suggest that you watch something else.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna spoil it. It's on the episode, but thank you for checking out this video. Thank you for listening to the episode. Coming up next, the Nicolas Cage horror fantasy, both Color Out of Space. No idea what it's about, but it's requested / demanded by Jordan Mans, and we'll do it. So when you're done with Dolemite, watch Color Out of Space, and then just get ready for a Contrarians episode on it. But until then, thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon.